Well, happy Thanksgiving and welcome back to the BW3 podcast. It's brought to you by Schaefer's Oil as we prepare for Turkey Day, November wrapping up, getting close to December, and lots of things marinating in NASCAR.
Wow, a lot going on there. You thought it's dome season and PRI season, and then, I know you watch Coffee with Kenny a lot, and I know you've heard him say a lot. The judge said, you guys are going to burn the house down. You got to get this settled. You're going to burn the house down. The house got burned down. Everybody's probably heard the Steve Phelps comment about Richard Childress needs taking out back and flogged, I think was the word. And what's your...
Pretty strong language from a NASCAR executive.
So, I want to hear your perspective because you're a stick and ball guy. You can not get as upset and uptight and mad as I am. What is your thoughts? Maybe you are. Maybe you think it's just as offensive as I do. Just
unfortunate on his part, especially with one of the icons of the industry to kind of couch him in those terms, and it's going to come back to bite, isn't it? Because in the discovery process, everything is wide open going to court, and that's where things are in court right now. And I don't know what your feeling is. It's probably going to head for a settlement, don't you think?
They got to do it by Monday.
But a lot of money involved.
A lot of money. My friend Jerry Hoffman said when you get an outsider with money coming in, he kind of feels like that's where the problem starts. I agree with that, but I also look at Steve Phelps as an outsider, and I'm going to go as far as Steve O'Donnell too, because and here I know of two instances that myself I can bring a lot of instances up, and I've waited to share my opinion on this for the show. Jim France came from the NASCAR Winston Racing Series. Jim France came to Lebanon, Missouri several times, about once a year, maybe twice a year, and would spend his time drinking coffee with Bill Willard, Darrell Gregory. He knew what local tracks needed. And in my opinion, Jim France, Bill Jr., Jim France was Bill France Jr.'s brother. Jim France done a lot for this sport. Bill France Jr. and Bill France ran everything with an iron fist, and I feel like you really need them back. I think Jim done a fantastic job of running the NASCAR Winston Racing Series. He was a sports car guy. He went and took IMSA, and then a lot of people probably don't know this. He took and got the 24 Hours of Daytona and then got into sports car racing and really took the race 25 years ago. The 24 Hours of Daytona was really not in a great spot. And he went out on a limb, started the Daytona prototype class, owned a car in the series, just really took sports car racing that was on life support and revived it and helped. And did a fantastic job. Brian France came in to replace Bill France Jr. Brian is Bill's son. And Brian had whatever that, obviously he had the whole cocaine DWI incident. That blew up, and that caused a problem. Ben Kennedy, who is Lisa France Kennedy, he would be Jim's nephew. Ben wasn't old enough at the time to run NASCAR. Still probably they're wanting to groom him the way Brian France was groomed. And if you go listen to Dale Jr.'s show, he talks about how Brian France was groomed to run the sport, and he was. Brian France done a lot of really good things, I feel like, in a short period of time. And to Brian France's credit, NASCAR was at the peak of the sport under Brian France's realm. Whether anybody wants to admit that, think about that, it is what it is. To his mistakes, he had it going on. Had some personal issues come up and things happen. Jim France steps into this role, I feel like, out of retirement. And I feel like that Jim France is great person. He's a grassroots racer. And I feel like Jim France is probably, and I think Ben Kennedy's doing an exceptional job. Like Ben Kennedy has done everything in the sport. He's just young. They need to figure out a way to get him going. Because like if you look at what Ben's tried to do, he's really done a lot of great things. Jim France is the only old school part of the France family left in the building, in my opinion. He's got to be in his 80s. He's probably maybe even older than that. Obviously, probably not wanting to be in that situation that he's in. He needs to be living the twilight. So they hired some people that were executives. Mike Helton was brought up through the sport, and Mike Helton did every job. Mike Helton went from a radio he went from your job, literally, was in radio broadcasting, and went to the president of NASCAR, worked every job. Mike Helton ruled with an iron fist. Mike's doing other things, I think, above where he was at that people don't even realize now. But Steve Phelps and Steve O'Donnell have replaced Mike Helton. And they both have, it took two people, in my opinion, to do his job. Steve Phelps has been promoted, and I feel like big corporations promote people that do a shitty job to get them out of the way, right? And for Steve Phelps to say the things that he has said in the past, I'm going to say in the past 5 years, this isn't the first time. This is not Steve Phelps' first offense. Steve Phelps needs to be gone. He did not come from racing. And I don't feel like, no matter how much you try to understand it, he does not get it. And I feel like Steve O'Donnell, racing's a performance-based business. The St. Louis Cardinals, Mizzou, Kansas City Chiefs football, you're a performance-based business. If you're a coach at Lebanon High School and you ain't doing a good job, you don't have a job. Whether or not Steve O'Donnell, he may be doing a good job, but wins and losses are there. He's not, NASCAR's not where it used to be. They chose to go a direction, in my opinion, guided by Steve Phelps, to get a new race fan in to go away from their roots. He called Richard Childress a stupid redneck who owes everything to NASCAR. Cool. Perfect. Richard Childress started out selling programs at Bowman Gray Stadium and made his living in racing. And yes, he owes NASCAR for his money, but he put his heart and soul into that, and he did it the old-fashioned way, and he is the face of NASCAR. Who's the biggest sponsor, in your opinion, of NASCAR? Off the top of your head, who do you think sponsors the most cars in the Cup Series? If you were thinking about it right now, money-wise.
I don't know.
Bass Pro?
Up there.
And they sponsor a car at Richard Childress Racing. Sponsor a car at Joe Gibbs Racing. Sponsor a Busch car or a O'Reilly Auto Parts Series car for Dale Earnhardt for Junior Motorsports. I feel like Bass Pro and Menards are the two companies with the biggest amount of money that they spend in NASCAR. That's my opinion. Who brought Bass Pro into NASCAR? I mean, they didn't come because Joe Gibbs had nothing to do with. Joe Gibbs just had Martin Truex, who was a fisherman, driving for him, and it kind of worked out. And Joe Gibbs is a great person. Nothing against Joe Gibbs. When you think of Bass Pro, do you think of Joe Gibbs?
No.
Every redneck that you're getting to come to your race shops at Bass Pro. I took my kids last weekend we were at Big Cedar. Actually, when this news broke, we're at Big Cedar. We're in the arcade. And I put the picture on Facebook for a multitude of reasons, but it bugged me. I'm looking, and there's a Bass Pro car in the arcade at Big Cedar. If you go to the arcade, there's a Xfinity Series car that was Ty Dillon's that is a Bass Pro car owned by RCR. I wouldn't consider most of the people in there complete rednecks that you don't want watching your sport in that building. NASCAR's getting free promotion out of this car. Everybody's taking pictures with it. My kids got their picture taken with it. Because of that stupid redneck Richard Childress that developed that relationship. There's a lot to this. And the only reason it bugs me is I feel like high tides raise all ships. And we've talked about this a little bit on the show. That door right there is got NASCAR influence on it. That Gatorade in front of that Gatorade was a NASCAR Winston Racing Series sticker. It's not there because the pop rivets took it off. There's a NASCAR Winston Racing Series sticker that would have been there as well. Larry Phillips made a living because Jim France helped institute the NASCAR Winston Racing Series. It paid $140,000 to win the national championship in 1996. NASCAR's lost its way. It pays $25,000 to win the NASCAR national championship in 2000, and I think it may be $30,000. In 2025. 30 years later, you took a 1 off the front of it. Like, what are we doing? We built superstars. We built a sport up because of our grassroots racing. That NASCAR is what it is. It's not going to reach a fan. It's just not. Like Formula One is the most boring. I tried to watch the F1 Grand Prix Saturday night. I watched the first bits and pieces and I fell asleep. And Braden and I watched it together, and the first corner was really exciting. And then I think Verstappen won by 23 seconds. It was never a race. It's not. They're very cool cars, and it's cool to see a car go 220 miles an hour down the street. People go to F1 races because it's an event. And people do the same thing for NASCAR, don't get me wrong. But there's not even a United States-born person that is racing in F1. There isn't one. There's not an F1 driver, and hasn't been a relevant F1 driver from the United States in 35 years. So what are we doing? Like, you're going after a fan that isn't there. The Dome in St. Louis puts 38,000 people. Cody revealed his attendance numbers. 38,000 people per night in the Dome in St. Louis coming up. More than Busch Stadium gets every night, 3 nights in a row. Huge event. Millions of people are going to watch it on the live stream on Flow. They're all redneck, beer drinking, skull loving people like us that built NASCAR, and we've lost it. And another thing, I don't know if you saw this, the SRX documents and how they were offended by SRX and how they saw Tony Stewart and all these other drivers going to SRX races mad because Chase Elliott and Ryan Blaney had raced in these races. And they packed grandstands. And they're like, oh, we need to go back to our roots. No crap. Like, they've got 2 people at the head of NASCAR that, in my opinion, this lawsuit wouldn't even have happened if it had somebody else there. Right or wrong, I don't know really how I feel about this lawsuit and if Michael Jordan and them are doing the right thing. I don't know. I feel like everybody's being greedy with money. Jeff Gordon publicly said that Hendrick Motorsports has not turned a profit in 10 years. 2311 has turned a profit in 5 out of the last 6 years, $3.5–4 million a year profit. So I'm assuming a lot of that is heavily influenced by Michael Jordan having his branding and his influence. But I feel like everybody wants it the right way. I don't think anybody, and I don't think Steve O'Donnell and Steve Phelps want the sport wrong, but your sport was built on Richard Childress. It wasn't built on Joe Gibbs. Nothing against Joe Gibbs, but Joe Gibbs came from the Washington. Joe Gibbs is no different than Michael Jordan. Like, he won the Super Bowl. He's like, hey, I'm going to go was a race fan and started him a NASCAR team. Same as Michael Jordan, just the exact same path.
Well, when you bring Joe Gibbs up, to me anyway, think about the Washington Redskins.
Right.
3 Super Bowls.
Right. So I think of Michael Jordan. I don't think about NASCAR. I think about the Chicago Bulls. Yeah. And that was the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest basketball player of all time is Michael Jordan. Always going to be. Whether or not he actually is in 20 years, I'm still going to think he's the best. They've got a great thing with Michael Jordan and Joe Gibbs, but your sport was built off Junior Johnson and Richard Childress, Junie Donlevy. It wasn't built off these people. You know, I don't understand how you get away from your roots, and that's what bugs me.
Well, if you don't have solid roots and a solid foundation, then the house is compromised, right?
I think so, but I do think this. I do think that Jim France has the ability to pick up the phone. I think Ben Kennedy has the ability to pick up the phone. I do think Kenny Wallace is right. I understand Dale Jr. is wanting to own a team and has other endeavors. I feel like Dale Jr. is willing to do what he thinks needs to be done, whether he needs to be an advisor or something, but go listen to him. Go talk to him. And he goes back to the short tracks and races. He owns a team. He knows the heartbeat of that sport, and he appreciates the history probably more than even us. So, go listen to him. He's invested. That's his whole life. And get somebody like that to fix your problem and then grow it. And I think at this point, that's what they're going to have to do. Yep. But anyway, back off of that soapbox, it takes up most of the show. Breaking news, Brandon Overton, Longhorn Factory Team. Longhorn Factory Team and Riggs Motorsports splitting up. Crew chief leaving with Brandon's crew chief leaving and going back to Ricky Thornton Jr. And Anthony Burroughs is probably the most sought after crew chief in the dirt racing world, and going back home to Ricky Thornton. I thought of that a lot. What pairing can you think of in your era, and whether it's football, baseball, basketball, where you took the greatest coach and the greatest team and it didn't work? Because that's kind of how I feel about this. Those expectations are I feel like right now, if Nick Saban goes to LSU, comes out of retirement, goes to LSU, those are unrealistic expectations that can never be met. And I kind of feel like that's what's happened with the Longhorn House Car. And that's just, Nick Saban goes to LSU and doesn't win the national championship next year, it would be considered a failure, correct? Right?
Well, compared to his past achievements, yeah.
And I don't feel like he's got time. If you go to if Drinkowitz goes to LSU, he does not have time, in my opinion, to build his roster in time to build it. Next year is kind of a just kind of a building year, right? And then the year after should be the year that you really can show it. I don't think people give you the time to set in and make that happen anymore. And I feel like it's happening in dirt racing too. Burroughs and Overton needed time to mesh. There's two completely different people. And I think Brandon Overton is one of the top 5 most talented race car drivers in our sport. And I feel like it was unrealistic expectations. I feel like Brandon Shepard had unrealistic expectations in that car. And big news there. And it's going to be interesting to see, because I think both are going to be better apart. I do. I think that it's crazy how sometimes things don't work out, but the Dome coming up this weekend or next week, big deal there. Thanksgiving weekend coming up, not a lot going on, just Dome prep for everybody. But
where are you going to be racing at next?
We aren't going to the Dome. We are not. We were going to. Obviously, we got invited. We're supposed to race next Friday night. We have a brand new race car. Can't take it. It just, all of our resources, I made a deal with Kyle Steffens to run our other car. And I felt like, he's brought sponsorship and his, he owes his partners and his sponsorship and his people the best opportunity he can to run well in that car. So we focused on getting his car ready. So that's what my team and resources are focused for next week. We are planning on running MLRA. They announced the first race for MLRA is going to be at Springfield on March 20th and 21st of 2026. Officially, that's for sure our first race. But if something comes up between now and then, We're going to keep the options open. We got a lot of big announcements we're going to be making in the next 3 weeks. But
when'd you run your first comp cam race this year?
March.
Was that in March?
Yeah. So there is a comp race at Arrowhead the week before that. So we are looking at the 13th and 14th was just announced. So our calendar here in our area is I'm hoping back to normal next year. Arrowhead races March 13th and 14th. It's a 7 and a 10. Wheatland goes the week after that, or not Wheatland, sorry, Springfield the week after that with 2 5s or a 5 and a 7. And then Lucas Oil Speedway announced that Spring Nationals is MLRA sanctioned. The Nippy 50 is once again a Mars race. We're sitting, we'll have Mars points sitting there. Look at the schedule, but I don't think there's an MLRA. There is no MLRA race that weekend that I know of, and I'm sure there won't be. So it looks to me like our dirt schedule in March and April is filled up pretty quickly, and then but a lot has to do with what MLRA, how they fill their weekends in. I know they're going to Lucas Oil Speedway a couple times. He's got several dates at Springfield. I've heard of some other places that I love going to race at that I heard are going to take dates. So I'm looking forward to those. So I really, I'm happy for Ernie and excited on that. Mars has got some dates coming around our area too. So, try to pick and choose. And then, Comp Camps announced $50,000 to win the championship next year. Big money. So
compared to what this year?
I think it was 20 or 25. So they doubled and I pretty much doubled everything. It's a $200,000 point fund. So, really, really big money. I think it's 10,000 for it's enough that I think you'll see Cade Dillard, some other, Southern guys for sure focus on that. You might see a Missouri guy or two look at that as well. That's a lot of money. So, Mars, I think, is 30,000 to win. So, just to put that in perspective. And so, if it's 24 races, 50,000 to win, and you can go win that, that's a lot of money. So it's $2,000 a night extra. So a lot to look into there for both, for all the schedules coming out. But we're for sure focused on MLRA. I know I-44 Speedway is going to release their schedule pretty quick, and looking at what races make sense there, and then other asphalt races too. So a lot going on and a lot of work right now. Our crew's getting ready for the Dome and PRI the week after that. So a lot of exciting things coming, and should have a pretty big announcement coming on the show in the next couple of weeks as well.
That'll be awesome. Very good. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you and your family, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for joining us for the BW3 podcast, brought to you by Schaefer's Oil and presented and distributed by Swino Visuals.